See that up there? There are tens of thousands of people on that rock in the sky. Multiple cities. But that's just a fraction of what's going on up there. You see, decades ago, NASA sent a crew off to Jupiter. It was called the Pathfinder mission. In the summer of 2020, it was the biggest story on Earth. Everyone was talking about it. The future felt like it was arriving in real time. It would take them 5 years to arrive at their destination, but 3 years into their journey, the fourth corporate war broke out. This was essentially World War III. One of the first sites targeted during the war was Cape Canaveral, which happened to be where NASA's Mission Control Center was, meaning, in an instant, the only line of contact between Earth and the Pathfinder crew was destroyed. 3 years later, the war ended. By this point, Pathfinder should have already reached Jupiter's orbit. Militech scrambled to try and re-establish contact with them. Nothing. No signal, no data, no message, no proof they ever made it. It's been 57 years and still no one knows what happened to the Pathfinder crew. This is all Cyberpunk 2077 wants to tell you about this, but after doing a bit of digging into the source books, it appears something was off prior to the mission even occurring. Rumors of strange radio transmissions were picked up from nearby to Jupiter. Corporations started taking an unusual interest in the mission before it happened. NASA held its actual information very close to their chest. And while we don't know exactly what happened to the Pathfinder crew, we do know what's going on in space closer to Earth, and it's a lot. Spaceports, tourist hubs, entire cities on the moon, even Mars has a significant role to play in all of this. First, you have to get there. How do you do that? This is NCX, the Night City International and Translunar Spaceport. It's one of the largest and most prominent spaceports in North America. These places function a lot like airports do in our world. Most people come here to fly to different locations on Earth. The lucky few will come here to leave Earth. We can actually find remains of an airport near Night City out in the Badlands. This was a regional airport, but its state gives us a good indication that airports have been replaced with spaceports. NCX is actually considered outdated by modern standards. This is because Orbital Air, the company that owns these spaceports, is locked in a Cold War with Night Corp. This is Night City's representative company. Orbital Air promised Night City something called a mass driver, basically a giant space catapult. It would have put the city on the forefront of space travel, but Orbital Air decided that would give Night City way too much leverage and just gave them the spaceport instead. It's big, it's important, but it's not getting NC ahead. To make matters worse, NCX isn't even part of the actual city. It's a neutral zone under only international law. Night Corp isn't happy, and the conflict is still underway. Regardless, this is how people get into space and begin exploring what humanity has built in its effort to create a permanent life off Earth. Here's Bill, our barely informed local life form. He just got on a shuttle headed for the biggest city on the moon, Tycho. So, what would he find there? It wouldn't be some flag stuck in a rock type outpost. It's not just a research site either. He'd find a proper city. You wouldn't actually be able to see most of Tycho just by looking at the moon's surface. Most of it is underground. It's a vast network of glass-like tunnels and caverns. They mine ice down there to get their own water. They brought up plants from Earth to make hydroponic gardens that produce oxygen for them. By the 2070s, Bill wouldn't be walking into Tycho as some new fringe thing anymore. It's a bustling city of around 40,000 people. It's got its own economy going on with tours, space flights, a museum, shopping, restaurants, research, a steady mining business. They even have wine tastings from their own moon vineyards. Moon wine. Tycho isn't the only city on the moon either. Bill could get direct transport to its sister city, Copernicus. Its population is less than half of Tycho's at 18,000. This is the smaller, more laid-back moon city. People are known for being friendlier here than in Tycho. They lead decent lives centered around mining and various tourist-related amenities as well. These all sound like nice world-building details, but it tells us something a little bit more about space in this world. People aren't up here trying to survive. They're building leisure. This is their life, or maybe they're taking a vacation up here. It's becoming familiar, normalized even. Both cities are doing more than just sustaining life. Their mining industries help provide the raw materials needed to expand further into space and build places like Crystal Palace. This is a gigantic space station, but it's not full of astronauts bouncing off the walls while they drink Tang and eat freeze-dried ice cream. People call it the Las Vegas of space because of its casinos, clubs, and hotels. Your average person is very familiar with the Crystal Palace, but most of them never get to come here. This is a rich kids club where the ultra-wealthy try to escape from Earth's problems. The Crystal Palace is known for being high-tech even when compared to the rest of the cyberpunk universe. You also have spas, drone racing tracks, parks, golf courses, tennis courts, brain dance studios, luxury apartments and housing, panoramic views, concerts, and even goddamn white sand beaches. Beaches in space. Better yet, it's free from all of Earth's ecological destruction, poverty, and wars. It's safe here, like a gated community, but the gate is the other side of Earth's atmosphere. Yes, people are exploring a new frontier and expanding outwards. But what's happening in the process? You can leave Earth and come work here, but you'll have to take on enormous debt to do so. This leads to the workers becoming trapped in orbital servitude. To pay off your debt, you have to work as hard as your employer wants you to and do your best to earn tips from the ultra-wealthy guests. This leaves you with little choice but to be a smiling yes man to every request. Turns out, leaving the planet doesn't always solve an issue. It just moves the setting. Now, imagine this. You see a giant metal cylinder with large glass windows floating through space. But when you look in those windows, you don't see more steel and machinery. Instead, you see trees, grass, waterways, life. You'd be looking inside one of 3 O'Neill stations, some of the strangest and most important places in Cyberpunk's orbit. When the O'Neill stations were made, they were owned by the European Space Agency, ESA for short. They're the ones who set up Tycho and Copernicus, our moon cities, along with the Crystal Palace. The ESA wanted to keep expanding, so they sold Earth's scientists and engineers on the dream of life in space. This is your chance to build something new, to make history, to help carry humanity into the future. Everyone's ready to get on board and go to their new space stations. They're excited. But now the ESA has everyone trapped in space. The ESA began to force the workers into 18-hour days and brutal conditions with no rest. They didn't care about your age, your health, or your limits. You were there to work. The space miracles quickly became orbital labor camps. So these scientists get together and think they'll keep things civil and peacefully protest. The ESA didn't like that. They violently shut it down to crush any hope the workers had. Then the scientists get back together, use their big brains, and think, well, there's about 40 of us for every one of them. Not to mention, we're all the way out here in space, very far from reinforcements if you're an undermanned ESA. And this is how the 7-hour war happened. It was given that obscure and confusing name because the war lasted 7 hours. The workers overthrew the ESA and established something known as the High Rider Confederation. Turns out, having a bunch of highly skilled workers taking over an incredibly powerful space station isn't good for business. The High Riders began using space artillery to destroy a bunch of important orbital weapons and facilities that could have posed a threat to them. They weren't isolated to one space station either. By 2077, there's a real conflict for control over Earth's orbiting locations. Here's the current breakdown. The High Riders took control of O'Neill 1 and 2. O'Neill 3 is still in the hands of the ESA. They were able to maintain control there before a rebellion could break out. The new Confederation didn't stop at space stations though. Both moon cities belong to the High Riders as well now, with the ESA still having a significant stake in the Crystal Palace. Then the much less relevant Johnson space platform right here was last known to be owned by Orbital Air. But there is an intense game going on above where these factions are fighting for control over infrastructure, resources, and influence, not to mention the High Riders were able to create something of a new civilization in the stars. There's something different going on out there, and there's a bit of hope attached to them. The moon and some space stations aren't the limit though, they're the starting point. As early as 2023, people have been taking regular flights to Mars. God, a lot of this stuff was written in the 80s and 90s about the not so distant future, and now that we're past the not so distant future and we're not even close to any of this. It's kind of like, damn. Mars even has its own government now called the Martian Colonial Government. Within that, you have competing forces colonizing the planet. NASA and Japan got it started, followed by the ESA and the Soviets gaining a foothold as well. Again, that was just the beginning back in the 2020s. We're at the point now where Militech has announced the construction of an entirely new colony on Mars, and they're offering residential modules for only 100 million eddies. There's a more concerning reality on the red planet though. Remember back to the Pathfinder mission and Jupiter's mysterious radio signals? There's something unspoken going on in Cyberpunk's space. Take a look at this haunting image from the surface of Mars. This is called the Cydonia Face. It exists in real life as well. It's a mountain that looks oddly human, or perhaps we just see it that way because humans like to find faces in everything from space mountains to clouds. The troubling part is the Cydonia Face is just the beginning. Strange, systematic formations on the surface of Mars are confusing the scientists looking at it. The design looks intentional, but the researchers assumed that through further investigation, they would discover a natural explanation to things. But they never did. No evidence discovered supports the idea that these strange formations on Mars are completely natural, nor that they were intelligently designed. The most substantive reports on the topic are all classified. And they may never figure it out because time is of the essence. Every major player involved in Mars has an interest in terraforming the planet, making research, mining, and colonization much easier. This really opens up the setting in ways I never imagined. We do brush up against space just a bit in 2077. Ziggy Q, the talk show host, we've talked about him before, has become a spokesperson for the Crystal Palace, selling the dream to the few listeners who can actually afford a trip. So Me can be sent to Tycho on the moon to receive special treatment, alluding to the High Rider's advanced scientific capabilities, and V can even attempt a heist on Crystal Palace, but we never see how it turns out. There was even a chance we were going to get to go to space in a more extensive way, but it fell through. Seems likely for the future though. Slowly but surely, a major player has been taking over the space industry. Less and less do we see mention of NASA, the ESA, the Soviets, and even Japan. Orbital Air has a monopoly on spaceports, and they have one in just about every major city in every country healthy enough to support one. But there's a very dangerous conflict boiling up. With Night Corp's mysterious connections to AI, Orbital Air may be walking into a conflict they don't see the other side of. Regardless, life in space goes on. Various organizations and corporations fight for territory, resources, and influence, just as they do on Earth. The expanse into space is often sold as an opportunity to escape Earth's problems, but really, we're just dragging very human problems into unknown territory. We continue pushing forward into that unknown, distracted by infighting and greed. Meanwhile, someone or something might be listening.
Cyberpunk Space.